Good point.
Roll call, Mr. Reba.
Mr. Bonomo?
Here.
Mrs. DeCosmo?
Here.
Mr. Fume?
Here.
Mrs. Kay?
Here.
Mr. Mahalik?
Here.
Mrs. Carcella?
Here.
Mr. Szymanski?
Here.
Mr. Van Hoeklen? And Mr. Zola?
Here.
Did we call him?
No.
Oh, okay.
He had a meeting.
Okay, while you're doing that, I'll just like to announce we had an executive session on April 9th. It was an executive budget meeting. Caitlin?
The following is the April activity report for the Hazleton area high schools. Student Council recently started a new Student of the Month program. This program celebrates individual achievement by creating a culture of learning that values effort, leadership, overall achievement, school spirit, outstanding attitude, service to others, and exemplary attendance. The Students of the Month for March in the high school are Lily Serrano, Braylon Poulos, Lawrence Huff, Donovan Hernandez. In the Academy of Sciences, Christopher Dinieta, Jessiel Castillo, Megan Novak, Ava Zion Smith. And in the Career Center, Harlan Castro, Jennifer Diaz, Chloe Busher, and Jorge Taveras Colon. Nearly 100 Hazleton area high school and Academy of Science students participated in the second annual Women in Science STEM Symposium. The students listened to keynote speakers, a panel discussion of women working in many STEM fields, vendors, and schools about careers and educational opportunities. 90 members of the Hazleton Area High School Future Business Leaders of America competed at the State Leadership Conference held April 8th to 10th at the Hershey Lodge and Convention Center in Hershey, PA. Congratulations to the following students who placed in the top 10. Nerissa Mancio, Joseph Halisack in Mobile Development placed first. Alexandra Chura in Impromptu Speaking took 7th place. And Lucy Pancala in Introduction to FBLA placed 8th. Nerissa Mancio and Joseph Halisack will be representing the state of Pennsylvania and competing at the National Leadership Conference in San Antonio, Texas from June 28th to July 2nd. The following senior business students were inducted into the National Business Honor Society at the Pennsylvania FBLA chapter. Haley Chico, Carl McHugh, Casey Olander, Andrew Riotto, Angela Search, Erica Trella, Ut Pepin, and Anthony Pettit. In addition, the Hazleton area chapter received first place in largest local chapter membership with 211 members. 7 Hazleton area students placed at the HOSA State Leadership Conference and now qualify for the next level competition in Orlando. Ashley Magda placed 2nd in medical law. Jessiel Castillo, Brent Gammer placed 1st in health education. Jocelyn Phillips placed 3rd in prepared speaking. Destiny Reimiller 1st in exempt poster. And Kendrick Carlick and Andriana Payne placed 1st in CERT skills. Congratulations to the following students from the Visual Arts Studio of the Arts and Humanities Academy for winning awards in Hazleton Art League's annual Art Youth Expo. Joshua De Vargas placed 1st for drawing. Ray Luz Rodriguez also placed 1st, but for crafts. Honorable mentions go out to Acacia Bermudez, Abby Heffelfinger, Trinity Bobus, and Christelle Colon. Their art and 45 other pieces from our school studio are on display for the month of April in the Art League Gallery. 5 Hazleton Area High School Career Center students placed 1st in their events at the recent Skills USA State Competition in Hershey. Jarlin Castro and Jason Rosario took 1st place in audio production. Karen Hernandez, Richard Sanchez, and Kevin Blanco won 1st place in entrepreneurship. They would go on to nationals in June in Kentucky.
Thank you. We're on public announcements and recognitions. Mr. Upplinger?
As always, it gives me great pleasure to recognize our students on and above and beyond what they do in a school day. And this is no exception to that rule. But at this time, I'd like to recognize Nicole Mahon for her selfless contributions, hard work, and dedication so generously given each year towards the success of the Chemo Buddies project. And she's been doing this for more than 3 years. It's been 3 years. Do you want to tell a little bit about how many bears you've been able to? Thank you.
Thank you. I've done this for 3 years now, and I've collected a little over $1,000 and well over 2,000 buddies throughout the 3 years, and I couldn't thank you all for allowing me to do this.
Great job. Thank you.
For those not familiar with the project, what it does is basically she's collecting teddy bears with or whatever stuffed animals and providing those to students or children that are stricken with cancer, and takes them to the hospitals and just to give them a smile. So we thank you very much for doing that for these past 3 years.
And Mr. Uplinger, if I
Yes.
may, now she's a student, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and a senior. So you start this. Wow. I mean, I always wondered whose idea this was. So wonderful, and obviously we'll carry this on at least for a few more years. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great job. So there are addendums up here on the podium to the agenda. And do we have any comments directly on board agenda items only from the public?
Yes. Michelle Kushmeter, the library.
I'm Michelle Kushmeter. I'm from the Hazelton Area Public Library. I'm our executive director, and I just wanted to offer a little bit of comment on the proposed plan for the library modernization. I caution the board to think about the impacts this will have academically with reduced library size and staffing. And it's also a concern for the public library because we have a branch, and a very active branch, at the McAdoo-Calares School, and that would impact our library services as well, possibly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think if we do approve the architecture on what's on the agenda, I think we are going to look at that McAdoo situation a lot closer. That doesn't get closed down.
Right.
I mean, we're definitely well aware of that
That's the goal,
situation
not
over
to
there.
close, to
Mickey Howe.
affect that.
And you know what, I also, excuse me, and I also want to look at each school individually also before we go. Even though we vote on it, I do want to look at it school by school. Because I know how important it is. I think every child should have a book in their hand.
Thank you.
Then I think it should be taken off of the agendas.
Well,
It's been discussed in executive session a dozen times. If that's the feeling of a couple board members, then it should be removed from the agenda, and we should go back to the drawing board.
well, on the library?
Yeah, because all of a sudden now I'm hearing opposite of what I heard at meetings. So if there's question by any of the board members, let's just remove it and
Well,
sit back down and discuss
Well,
it.
let him come up with a plan and let them review the plan. That's,
No.
we
Why-
got it.
Why should we pay an architect if the board doesn't agree on
All
it?
right, well, we'll vote on it then.
Well, I think that also, I mean, if there are questions, like you're saying, definitely we should remove it from the agenda until we look into it.
All right.
Okay.
Pam Shemansky?
Oh,
Sorry.
That's okay. It's good. Hi, I'm Nikki Howe. I'm actually a librarian at 2 schools in the district. I just wanted to, again, just feed off of what she had said. I really, really caution you guys and make sure that you really investigate, and I appreciate what you just said, Linda, and I hope you guys do follow through with that because every school is individualized. But I will tell you, taking away the books, and after having a meeting with our superintendent was very appreciated. Replacing them, even just the older ones, replacing them with Nooks and Kindles is not gonna help these kids learn to read. You need to have a book. You need to have those pages flipped. There are so many kids in this district who are of poor families who can't afford their own books, who can't get to the library, or lose them and have to replace them. You're talking about kids, every day I have to send home notes to some kids, sometimes they lose their books. I'm not a good speaker, so please forgive me, but I just think it's really important that you understand there's been surveys done at individual schools where they had the parents come in to teach them and help the parents learn about how important reading is to their kids and what they can do to help them. They were handing out books to the parents, and the kids were like coming in all excited. I can't wait to finally read at home. I can't wait to take my book home and read it through different organizations, WVIA that comes in, and every year when they come in, they bring in books and hand them out and give us and donate some books that we send home with these kids, and these kids are thrilled to have these books. These books are not allowed to go home. They're property of here, so they're not allowed to go home. So I want to ask, if I can ask this, if you decide and you go through with this and you look at Kindles, how is this, do you have a plan in as to how they're going to check out their books? Right now, they check out a book, they take it back to the classroom. Where with a Kindle, how are you going to do that with a Kindle? Are you going to have that many Kindles that are going to go back to the classrooms with all these students? And then now you're putting all that responsibility of watching these Kindles and ensuring that they're safe in their classrooms with the teachers. That's putting a lot more responsibility on the teachers. I just think that moving from books to Kindles is really going to be difficult to do, and just unfair to the kids. I mean, I have my daughter here who loves to read. She's, as I'm sure many kids do, but without that library and without that encouragement by the teachers, I have students, you know, I'm not going to name the teachers, but there are several teachers who have given free books. I personally go to Ollie's and I personally buy books myself because one of my libraries doesn't even have that many books to begin with. And it's sad because you see kids come in and they're all excited. They're running they're running in the library. Didn't realize, I'm sorry. And they're just looking for books, and taking them away is just the wrong thing to do. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for your concern.
Pam Szymanski.
Okay, that's all right.
My name is Pam Szymanski. I work at the Castle. I'm in the library. I worked for this district for 30 years. 29 has been in the library. So I think I have some questions. Maybe you can't answer them now, but maybe you could just think about them. When my students come into the library, the teachers will ask me, they're doing book reports, whether they're nonfiction, they're fiction, they're biographies. We're getting rid of books. How do these kids now do book reports? I allow some of the students to take their books home because they need to. When they're doing a biography, they have to draw pictures of their faces. How else are they going to, get booked? A lot of them don't go down to the public library. You know that. So we are the main source for these students to get books so they can do projects. They did projects for gallery night, for Meet the Teachers. Where do you think they get the ideas from? They get the ideas from the books when they come to the library. Whether it's on solar system, any kind of a biography, the presidents of the United States. How do you think these students learn? By books. Next year, we're getting more students, they're saying, at the castles. But yet, you're telling us that we're going to chop the libraries, we're getting rid of books, because of course, I have probably one of the biggest libraries in the school district. So now we're cutting that in half, we're getting more students, we're getting rid of books. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. How do we promote reading to the students when they see that the school board is chopping our libraries? How many students that have came to my library the last 2 weeks and said, why are they getting rid of libraries? And I just say, well, we're not getting rid of libraries, but we're going to get rid of some of the books. How do I explain this to the students? The last thing I'm going to ask, I did a survey. with some of my students in the library. And I asked the students, what was a Kindle? You know what their answer was? It's a kind of a candle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Felicia?
It's okay, baby. I'll be right back. Hi. Sorry, I'm a little short. I'm a parent to multiple students at the McAdoo Elementary School, and they're really upset. And it's really upsetting to me because we go to the library program with Ms. Sue since my daughter was 18 months old, and I have now my youngest one who's starting to go, and they have learned to read, and they have learned what a thesaurus is and what a dictionary is and an atlas, and she has these maps that they get so excited just to go in there and see all these different things. And if we cut these libraries in half or take them away, they won't have the access to this stuff that they get when they're in these libraries. And whether it's in school or me taking them down there myself, I can't imagine what they would do if they got rid of it. I really feel like you guys should, sorry, just take a second and really think about the kids, because I know space is an issue, but there has to be another option, because it's not a fix. It's not going to change anything if we take away from our students now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alicia?
I'm both a parent of a future student. I grew up in the Hazleton School District. Ms. Piseni was my librarian. She taught us everything about reading. She opened our eyes to series books. Now, I was never a popular kid, and popular kids were reading the same things I was reading. It opened lines of communication. It brought bonds to us that otherwise we wouldn't have. I've got a 2-year-old little boy over there. We read 2 or 3 books a night. You take these libraries out, he's stuck with the same, 5, 6 books? You know? In addition to that, but you're cutting them in half, you're gaining 1 classroom. 2 years, what are you gonna do? Take the rest of them away? You know, I'm losing hope in this district. He's 2. I don't wanna send him here. Stuff like this just makes it worse. You know, I have no reason to not wanna leave, you know? Charge us the extra taxes, we're gonna pay it, you know, but you're taking the education from our kids. You're taking doorways that they wouldn't have. You've already taken the music, you've already taken the art, they're on carts. In prison and in jails, they roll these things around. There's a cart, they push it, they'll give you a book. What are you doing to these kids? You know, at some point it'll get there. And you do, I really think you need to think about who's there now and who's gonna be there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bethany?
Hi, my name is Bethany. I am a mother of 3 beautiful little girls and a foster mother to 2 other children as well. So I have 5 kids in my home. On a weekly basis, we are at the public library branch at McAdoo Clares Elementary. My oldest daughter turned 6 last week. I have read at least 750 books to her from that library. Of the 1,500 books I have read to my children, at least 750 of them have come from that library. We use it regularly. My foster children would not be exposed to these books, the library, without this. We're taking them to the library, and I think about how they wouldn't be getting that, but there are kids in the Hazleton district who wouldn't be getting it as well. And I think just the example we set is that books are important, and if we take away half of our libraries and reduce the books, what we're telling our kids is that reading isn't important, but their kids are empowered through reading. They're empowered through learning. It prepares them for the future. And without these libraries, without the books, maybe it's extra, we say, I don't think it is, because if we're struggling with classroom sizes, you don't have extra books at these libraries. So taking them away is just taking away resources that are so crucial to kids. My 6-year-old is reading at a 2nd grade reading level because she hears these books from the library. And so I really, really would like you to reconsider and not taking apart these libraries. I don't know where my family would be without Miss Sue and the library at McAdoo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have your own little fan club out there.
Okay, need a motion to approve the board
Motion.
meeting. Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mrs. DeCosmo. Question. Mr. Reba.
All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion to approve the treasurer's report. Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mr. Mahalik on the question. Mr. Reba.
All in favor of approving the treasurer's report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Mr. Uplinger.
Thank you. Before we move on, item number 14 is an articulation agreement for King's College and our STEM school students. I just wanted to add that Dr. Briggs will be working with King's College because we're looking at technology on that, with the addition of introduction to Skype or some tool that way. So we just wanted to make it clear that we'll work with King's College on how to make this happen. So just wanted to be clear on that.
Thank you.
Approve items 1 through 14.
Motion.
With one motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo and second by Mr. Mahalik on the question. Mr. Reba.
Items 1 through 14, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No on 11.
I'm gonna be no on 11 and 14.
Ayes have it, noting the no vote.
Only no on that because we asked that last meeting to get a hard copy of that.
Email.
We never got.
I sent it via email
Email.
to everyone.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mr. Uplinger.
Under special education, approve items 15 through 17.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mrs. DeCosmo on the question. Mr. Reba.
Numbers 15 to 17, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Under English Language Development, ELD, approve items 18 and 19 with one motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mahalik on the question. Mr. Reba.
Numbers 18 and 19, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Under Nutrition, approve items 20 and 21.
Motion.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Bonomo, second by Mr. Mahalik on the question. Go ahead, Mr. Reba.
Numbers 20 and 21, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Under Transportation, item 22 with one motion.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mrs. DeCosmo on the question. Mr. Reba.
Number 22, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Under Facilities and Capital Projects, approve items 23 through 26 with one motion.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
I'll second it.
On the question.
Second by-
Recommendation that we remove number 25.
we have a motion to remove number 25 by Mr.
To make a motion
Second.
to table?
Table,
Is there a
yes.
motion to
Table,
table?
to table, second by Mrs. Kay.
Second.
On the question. Mr. Reba.
On the motion to table 25, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion is tabled.
Move on with 23 through 26 minus 25.
Okay, on 23, 24, and 26, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No on 23.
Ayes have it,
Alex got this.
motion passes.
1 second. Replinger?
Okay, on
27.
page 6, under security, item 27.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Scarcella on the question. Mr. Reba?
Number 27, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Under students, under technology, approve items 28 and 29 with one motion.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mahalik on the question. Mr. Reba?
Numbers 28 and 29, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sometimes.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Under student activities, athletics, and extracurricular, I approve items 30 and 31 with one motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Scarcella. On the question. Mr. Reba?
Numbers 30 and 31, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No on 30.
Ayes have it, noting the no vote.
Mr. Replinger?
While I'm moving into finance, the names that for item number 35 are on the addendum for parts A and B. So under finance, approve items 32 through 37 with one motion.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cosmo. On the question. Mr. Reba?
Numbers 32 through 37, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
On page 8, approve items 38 through 40 with one motion.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mahalik on the question. Mr. Reba?
Numbers 38 through 40, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Still on page 8, item number 41.
Motion.
Motion to pay
Motion
the
by
bills.
Mr. Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Scarcella. Question. Mr. Reba?
Number 41, A through I, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm a no on G and I.
No on I.
G and I.
Mr. Bonomo, what was yours? Just aye?
Just aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes.
On page 9, under the superintendent's agenda, approve items 42 through 49 with one motion.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo. Second. I'll second. On the question. Mr. Reba?
Numbers 42 through 49, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, just on number 45, I'd like to thank
Yes.
the family for their generous gift to our music department.
Thank you.
We have representatives here tonight for that, so thank you very much.
Oh, we do.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.
Replinger?
On page 10, approve items 50 through 55 with one motion.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo.
Second.
Second by Mrs. DeCosmo on the question. Mr. Reba?
Numbers 50 through 55, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Item number 56, it should read Texas instead of California, just to make that clear. Under letter A, FBLA, 2 students, is Texas. Approve items 56 through 61 with one motion.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo, second by Mr. Mahalik. On the question. Mr. Reba?
Numbers 56 through 61, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Approve items 62 through 75 with one motion.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mrs. Scarcella on the question. Mr. Reba?
Numbers 62 to 75, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
On page 13, approve items 76 through 88 with one motion.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo. I'll s-
Second.
Second by Mrs. DeCosmo on the question. Mr. Reba?
Numbers 76 through 88, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
On the addendum.
Okay, addendum?
A few motions on the addendum, new motions. And the one item that is not listed on the addendum is that would be number 8. Recommend board approve the resignation of Nina Mariano Martin, part-time secretary at Heights Terrace, and also then we would post for that immediately. So that would be a number 8 on the addendum.
So, since it's a new item, is there any public comment regarding that? Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Item number 1, under new motions on the addendum, recommend board approve an unpaid leave for RED
I'll make the
001.
Motion by
Second.
Mr.
I'll
Szymanski, second by Mr. Mahalik. On the question? Mr. Reba?
On addendum item 1, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Item number 2, recommend board approve a medical leave for DRU 008, teacher.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mrs. Cosmo. On the question? Mr. Reba?
Addendum item 2, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Item number 3, recommend board approve a medical leave for PAH 001,
Motion.
maintenance.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mr. Mahalik. On the question? Mr. Reba?
Addendum item 3, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Item number 4, recommend board approve the retirement of Lynn Frumpkin.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Szymanski, second by Mr. Bonomo. On the question?
I'd
Mr.
like
Re-
to just
uh,
wish Mrs. Frumpkin a wonderful retirement. Thank her for her many, many years of service. Tremendous person, incredible teacher, and certainly her presence will be missed and felt here in
Thank you.
Hazelton area.
Is
Took the
Lynn
words
here?
right out of
Right.
my mouth.
No?
She is not.
Just, I worked with Lynn at the Career Center, and she was involved with students constantly. She was involved with the administration. She was part of our security teams that we had, in the buildings, and crisis management teams. And she always gave 100%. Teachers like that, I hate to see go. I hope she enjoys her retirement.
Same here. I hope she enjoys that and thank her for her service. Mr. Uplinger.
Okay, item
Vote on-
number
we gotta
5.
vote
Oh,
on-
we didn't vote on it? I'm sorry.
We did
Go
not.
ahead.
Yeah.
Additional item number 4, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Item number 5, recommend board approve Sarah Koviak
I'll
for
make
the
the motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Szymanski and second by Mr. Bonomo. On the question? Mr. Reba?
Addendum item 5, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Item number 6, recommend board approve the addendum to Hazelton Imaging Contract, Imaging Associates of Hazelton, PC, to reflect the decrease in the fees and payments. Schedule A effective October 1st, 2018.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mrs. DeCosmo. On the question? Mr. Reba?
Addendum item 6, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Item number 7, recommend board appoint Don Vetter to the
Motion.
position.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mr. Mahalik. Question? Mr. Reba?
Addendum item 7, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
And then the last item, item number 8, recommend board approve the resignation of Nina Mariano Martin,
Motion.
part-time secretary.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo,
Second.
second by Mrs. Cosmo. On the question? Mr. Reba?
Addendum item 8, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes.
Anything else from the board at this time?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the librarians for coming today and expressing their views, which is very important. Personally, I didn't think closing half the libraries was a bad idea. I'm not saying it was a good idea, but I'm glad you brought that to our attention. Probably the next, either in May or June, we're gonna be asking, there's a few proposals in front of us to address our needs expanding. I'm gonna ask the superintendent to recommend one of those proposals, and we'll announce when the meeting is gonna be. We're talking about putting an addition on a couple buildings or something like that, and if the public could come to those meetings and express their views on that plan, it would be greatly appreciated. And we're glad you came tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Shemansky.
We,
Right.
we just been struggling to find more space. I mean, and whatever we do is gonna, yeah, totally understandable. The reason why we need to hear from the public is we're gonna have to borrow more money. It's gonna add to
Well,
our,
Mr. Shemansky, that's gonna be something we're gonna need to talk
Yeah.
about at a public
Yeah,
meeting
so that's
with
what we want
everybody.
the public to,
Yeah.
Well, I just want to comment on Eddie's, I think if we're, you know, and I said this early on in the process, before we decide to expand the district, add buildings, build buildings, we need to put a committee together with the public and the board and sit down and discuss them, so that this doesn't happen. And we talked about this months ago, when we first started talking about, should we close the pools, what are we gonna do for space? Everyone knows that we need additional space. There's no question about it. The number of plants that are expanding in Humboldt, you know, are certainly going to add to our classrooms. So, but before we continue to pay architects to come up with idea after idea after idea, and then they get shot down, that's all taxpayer dollars, and it's running into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let's put a committee together, invite a number of people from the public to sit on it, our educators, our administrators, and go forward from there. Take a little extra time. Maybe it's gonna take an extra 6 months to a year to get that accomplished. But we're running around like chickens
No,
without heads right now.
I agree with committee. I know we've been going back and forth, and there are many options we're gonna need to look at down the road here, so that's something we're definitely gonna have to do. Anyone from the,
Mr. President, if I just, real quick again, and as we thanked the family with the generous donation for the piano, again, you hear how strapped we are. We appreciate it. Not sure how you came to Hazelton out of Mountaintop, but again, we thank you so very much. I also want to give a little recognition. I know he'll be upset for me, but this time of year, we get very close to the prom, and obviously we care and want our seniors to be very safe. Mr. Slusher and his law firm, each year they do the prom promise. He even does an incentive for the kids to be a part of, and this is something he doesn't have to do, and I know he does it out of just making sure that our kids are safe that night and all the nights leading up and shortly after, as is a fun, festive time for our seniors, but it's also a time where we need them to really make some good choices. So
absolutely.
thank you, Mr. Slusser, as well.
Thank you, Mr. Slush.
One other thing, on number 63, we go through it pretty fast. So John Starzyk is resigning or retiring, actually, effective July 31st. John's been with the district, I can't tell you how many years. He's like a focus there. He's been a security officer. He worked in most of our buildings. The last part of his career was at the high school, and John was always there for our students. He stepped up every day. John has his own little fan club of students, and we're gonna miss people like that. Dedicated, came to work every day, regardless. And I just want to say thanks, John, and we appreciate it. You're here? Are you here by any chance? No.
But thank you to him too. Luck. Anyone from the floor wish to be heard at this time?
I just want to make a plea one more time to the board. The Heights office now has an open position for a secretary. The person leaving was a part-time secretary, but that school is just flooded. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, that's one of the biggest schools next to the high school in the district. I mean, 1.5 people, it's just hard. It's really hard. And the secretary there works her butt off, really. And if there's any way that we could make that a full-time position there, it's so needed. I know we have an aide in there now. We have 2 schools are going to have aides coming up. So even if it meant putting a full-time secretary and moving the aide position from there to one of the other schools, but 2 full-time secretaries are so needed in that building. It's just, I know we have a hiring freeze and we're really trying to save money everywhere, but that's a place that really needs the help. So if you could just take one more look at it, take a look at that office and what they do on a daily basis in there. It's just a needy, needy school. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
They, if I may, I've met numerous occasions with our student council, and have asked. I said, here's some ideas. What do you think? And their major reply was, it's going to take too long. We need something quick. So, and we do. We're and obviously the pool conversion to classrooms, and if we were to move ahead with the libraries, it's only a Band-Aid. We're so strapped for room. We need to make a decision, and that's, we should be bringing the public in to take a look at that, and also we can certainly include the students in that discussion.
Thank you. Anyone else? Dr. Childs.
My name is Robert Childs. I'm a resident of Freeland. I would like to take just a minute to comment on a letter that a letter to the standard speaker that was published on last Friday, on Good Friday. I relayed the story of a young lady who, 7th grader from Valley Elementary Middle School, who did exactly what she was supposed to do with regards to bullying, and was ignored up and down the line by security, by the teachers, by the vice principal, by the principal. People in the administration know who I'm speaking of. She did everything by the book and ultimately was pulled out for cyber schooling because the parents were afraid for her physical health. After she got thrown down the steps and got her face slapped several times, they got kind of tired of that. I wanted to make several points. First off, I feel almost as sorry for the person who is the bully as I do for the young lady who got injured. She lost a lesson that she should have learned, and the school denied her that. Second point I want to make is that I think nothing is going to happen with regards to bullying in this district until the adults, until the staff who are responsible are held responsible. Something needs to be done to teachers who ignore situations. Something needs to be done to administrators who ignore situations, and it's not happening. And I can't see how anything's going to go right until that's taken care of. I would further go to the point that if you think this is the only incident, I've got at least 3 more I can tell you from recent times. People go to one case of a kid with obesity who went to his teachers and said, that kid's bullying me, ignored. Finally, he took things into his own hands and predictably was arrested, cited. Another child who has a high voice and was being kidded by a classmate over and over and over again about his being gay. Eventually took things into his own hands when the adults involved didn't pay any attention. The third one was a youngster who was tired of being told that he had just come off the banana boat and that he should be thankful to the other kids' parents for financing his education. Not told once, but multiple times. One of the adults who are told of these incidents are going to be held responsible.
15 seconds remaining.
Just to mention one other thing, and that is that the various individuals here so far have focused on the bullies themselves. When is somebody going to get tired of the system and go after the system? And that's what happened to Columbine. The kids involved got bullied and bullied and bullied, and they eventually went after the system. Now, everybody focused on the bad people, the bad kids at Columbine, but that could have been prevented. And everybody knows that. So just to bring that up one more time, thank you. That's your biggest security risk.
Thank you, Doc. Mr. Upplinger, you have.
I'm going to hope
something?
that the standard speaker does
Wait.
not print that last portion.
You gonna respond on that?
We don't need to give anyone any ideas, Doc. I mean, we understand what goes on, but, well, I don't disagree with you.
Dr. Upplinger.
I don't disagree with you, but
Mr. Upplinger.
let's
Mr.
not put any
Upplinger,
ideas into anyone's
Could you
head.
please respond on that, please?
Just certainly, if I may just elaborate a little bit, and the incident that Dr. Childs is talking about the student being pushed down the steps, there were specific directions given to the parents that they didn't follow through with in that specific building, and providing additional information that could have helped with that investigation. There were some other items that were published in the paper regarding instances in a specific building that are very well documented in that specific building as well, that are what we're hearing or what we're seeing in the paper is only part of the truth. We have documentation on excessive meetings that were held with these parents, and the resulting action of those bullies, if you will. So that you're only hearing part of it. So it's important for you to hear all of it. And instances where the administrators of a building aren't following through. I've never been contacted by any of these parents for me to assist with that, any issues at all. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you.
I met with that principal this morning, and that's not what was indicated to me, nor what was documented in the system. But thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I wasn't going to actually speak, but I decided I would after hearing what Dr. Childs has said. I honestly believe that all the adults have good intentions in the district that are looking after. I mean, we're just overcrowded. You know, you can't be seeing and monitoring every single student in action, but we do have a problem with our disciplinary, the way that disciplinary actions are taken against students. You know, children will be bullying, but we have a zero tolerance policy, but those children might not necessarily have, you know, when you take them away from the situation and they come back, they're just as angry. I mean, you're sending them out of the school and they get to sit at home and play on video games. There's no lesson taught. But then we'll have a child who has a disability that is recorded as a, you know, disabled student and has protections, doesn't understand the impact of what they're doing by taking an extra candy cane and gets a 2-day suspension. So, I mean, we have a really big disconnect between what's actually happening to what is the result of that. And I know that you guys work really hard because there are expulsions that happen that are needed to happen. So I'm not criticizing the school district in that sense, but I do think that the disciplinary model could possibly be looked at in, you know, disparity issues with, you know, the students. So that's,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Harry.
While the chief's coming up, we do have a bully policy, and I think Mr. Krasansky is bringing it up for us.
It's on your screens.
And it's been in place.
One of the problems that we have, and Doc, I know we've talked about this before, and I've asked you before, when you hear these stories, when people tell you these things, please get the other side of the story. and I've offered many times, call me, give me the names, I'll look into it. I haven't gotten a call yet. And I'm gonna give you a perfect example of why you need both sides of the story before you come up here and say things publicly. There was a meeting at the HIP Center the other night from the Human Relations Commission. And an article was printed in the paper, and the first thing in that article was a young lady who talked about how she went straight to Hazelton Area High School after her overnight shift in a warehouse with a box cutter in her pocket and spent 6 days in jail.
15 seconds
There
remaining.
were some other things in the article, and as I read, I'm thinking to myself, this doesn't make sense. So, first thing I did was pull up that name and start looking into it. And the first thing I find out is this happened in 2014. Now, nobody said this was 5 years old. I'm here 3 years. Mr. Uplinger is here less than that. The incident that she talked about predates our report writing system. Our report writing system we got in 2015. But fortunately, the arresting officer in that case had the file. And I have the report, okay, from that incident. Now, again, keep in mind, she said she came right from work at her supermarket and forgot she had the box cutter in her pocket. I'm going to read an excerpt from the report. The incident occurred as a defendant and a student at the Hazelton High School entered the building and walked through the metal detectors. An alarm sounded indicating the presence of a metal on the defendant's person. The defendant was then requested to move off to the side where she was checked with a handheld wand. The defendant was wearing a white sweat hood with a front center pocket. The wand alarmed in the area of the front pocket of the sweat hood. The defendant was requested to move any items that she might have in the front pocket. The defendant quickly put her hand in her pocket and refused to remove any items. I then again asked her to remove her hand and any items in her pocket. She refused again. I then told her to remove her hand from her pocket. This time she pulled her hand from the pocket and produced a folding knife, yellow in color. I immediately seized the item and escorted the defendant into the main office. I asked the defendant what grade she was enrolled. She advised me that she was in 12th grade. The 12th grade vice principal was in the office and I advised him of the incident. The defendant then told the vice principal that she put the knife in her pocket the night before and she carries it for personal protection. She stated she knew the item shouldn't have been brought into the school. I advised the defendant she would be charged with possessing the weapon on school property. I did not interview the defendant about the incident. I was present when she made the statements to the vice principal. She did state she carries the knife for protection. She also stated she knew the knife wasn't permitted in school. At no time did the defendant indicate the knife was possessed on school property for any legitimate reason or that the knife was brought into the building by mistake. It should also be noted that the defendant walked past an amnesty box, which would have permitted her to enter the building and place the knife in the box without consequences. The box is located prior to the metal detectors. The amnesty box specifically identifies knives and box cutters. The defendant had her hands in the front pocket of her sweatshirt as he walked through the metal detector, which demonstrates she knew the knife was in her sweat hood pocket, and after being requested to remove the item from her pocket, she failed to comply to turn the knife over. A little bit different than what was said at the public meeting. And as far as the 6 days in jail, anybody can go on the internet, on the court docket website, and pull up any information about charges that were filed. So what I'm about to say is public record that I found on the public website. Her charges were dismissed. She didn't serve 6 days in jail because of a conviction on those charges. Her charges were dismissed on a Rule 600 motion. Rule 600 is a speedy trial motion. The 6 days she spent in jail, and I'm going to assume this because as part of the docket, it shows that she never accepted the certified copies the certified letters that were sent to her on when her hearing date was. Because she never accepted the certified copies, although she did accept the first class letter that was sent telling her when the hearing date was, she never showed up for her hearing. Well, as some of us may know, in the criminal justice system, when you don't show up for your hearings, they issue a warrant. She was finally caught 2 years later. The 6 days she spent in jail, I'm going to assume, were 6 days because she was waiting to make bail. Had nothing to do with the charge. So again, this is how important it is to get the other side of the story.
Thank you, Chief.
Excuse me. can I just speak for 1 minute, please? And Dr. Childs, I respect you and I know you care very much for the students. But in the same respect, I worked in this district for 27 years with various principals, teachers, and I have to say, every single teacher in this district, every single principal is there for the student and cares about them, and if anything is brought up to them, they do take it seriously and they do look into it. So when you say that a principal or a teacher, I am offended by that because the teachers in this district truly, truly do care and work many, many hours and do a lot for the kids, as do the principals. So I'm not saying that you may have heard a certain part of it, but I also think there is another side to that that hasn't been told.
Not the one in the valley. There's not.
Well.
There's not another side to the story. I'm sorry. You can talk to the family if you'd like to, but that was not that family is not Latino. Just to respond to Mr. Harry, the problem that this particular individual gave her talk to the PHRC in Spanish because she does not speak English well enough. All the notifications about court were delivered in English. That's a problem, and that's something that needs to be worked on by the district, and the district hasn't taken it.
Has nothing to do with that, Bob.
Okay.
It's a criminal justice system.
Okay.
And they send notices in Spanish.
This was not sent in Spanish. That was her problem. Now, Mr.
They were never accepted. And the certified copy are accepted. Got something
No.
from a court, and you didn't understand what it said. Wouldn't you go and find out what it said, or would you just ignore it?
I don't know. I wasn't in her shoes, and you know that too.
All I'm saying is you need to get the other side of it. If we are wrong, by all means, come after us. I have no problem with that. If we're wrong, you should be called out. And I've asked time and time again, just please, before you come up here and tell us, get the whole story. That's all I ask. And nobody does that.
Mrs. DeCosmo,
Yes.
how does what you just told me, how does that correlate with what you told me about the fact that there was kids standing out in a snowstorm in front of the Castle building? Nobody would open the door when it was a 2-hour delay and people dropped off their kids. They didn't know there was a 2-hour delay. They were on their way to work.
And I did take
And you
that.
did. And you did it yourself. But you were the only one that did that.
And it was taken care of.
But you were the only one that
But-
did that.
but to-
What can you tell me about the people who watched those kids standing outside the castle with a 2-hour delay? Parents dropped them off at the right time. Tell me how much the people cared about, how much the staff cared about the students who were standing out
There
in the
may
cold.
have been some that did, but the majority of the people do care. Yes, they do.
My point is made.
Okay.
Yes,
All
they
right,
do.
let's-
I'm
let's-
sorry.
In
Okay.
some instances,
Let's move on. Mr. Busher.
John Busher, retired school teacher from Valley Elementary Middle School, of which I am incredibly proud. Thank you. Two comments. First of all, I want to compliment the board for tabling the library issue. I was toying about speaking on it personally because to me as a teacher, it really doesn't feel right that we're even talking about downsizing libraries or possibly closing them. So I'm really glad that you're going to take another look at that, and I thank you for that. And I don't have the facts of any of these issues that was brought up by the other speaker before, but I can tell you that in all my years of working in this school district, I'm incredibly proud of being a retired teacher from Valley Elementary. There is not a harder working, more caring group of teachers and administrators in this entire school district. Do we have problems? Do all the schools have problems? Do things sometimes fall through the cracks that there's just some situations that can't be dealt with the way a parent or a guardian or someone feels they should be? Of course. But they care. They care a lot. Never say they don't care.
Thank you, Mr. Bush.
You spoke already.
Yeah.
I know, but can I just
I mean,
clarify, because
well-
the young lady, I think I wanted to explain that is an editorial issue.
No.
That's
No.
no.
You've spoken
You,
already.
you had your treatment.
Thank you very much.
Because it
We
was
have-
an editorial mistake.
Well, we can't confirm that, but we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Bonomo, second by Mr. Cosby.
I think he does. I hope he can.
Thank you very much.